Erev Tov Rabotai, we're continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Yoma. We are up to Perek Aleph Mishnah Chet. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilun Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana Aranbayev and Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov, Menuchatam Began Eden, Amen. The Mishnah now discusses the time at which we perform the first temple service of the day, which is Tirumat Addition, separating some ash from the altar. This service involved removing some ash from the altar in a shovel and placing it on the floor of the courtyard to the east of the ramp, where it was miraculously absorbed into the floor, as the Rav tells us. The Mishnah begins, B'chol Yom, on every day of the year, Tormin et HaMizbeach, B'kriyat HaGever, the Kohanim would separate some ash from the altar at the crow of the rooster. This happens slightly before dawn, as Rashi says on page 20b, Masechet Yoma, or slightly afterward, as the Rambam brings down in Rechot Timidinu Musafin, chapter 2, Halacha 11. O Samuch lo, the Mishnah says, or close to it, Ben lefanav, Ben lachrav, whether just before it or just after it. Yoma Kippurim Mechatzot, and Yom Kippur, though, the Kohen Gadol would perform this service at any time from midnight onward, so that he had time to rest before beginning the daytime service. Now, since the Kohen Gadol had to perform all the sacrificial services of Yom Kippur himself, after being up all night and fasting all day, the sages wished to make his schedule as easy as possible to conserve his strength. After the Kohen Gadol separated the ash, he was kept occupied until the time came to offer the Tamid, as described in the previous Mishnah. Ubarigalim me'ashmua rishona, and on the pilgrimage festivals, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, when every man was obligated to make an appearance in the temple and bring an offering, me'ashmua rishona, they would separate the ash from the first watch onward, meaning after 1/3 of the night has passed. We know the night is divided into 3 watches of 4 hours each, as the Mishnah tells in Masechet Brachot, chapter 1, Mishnah 1, and the commentators explain, since on the festivals there was a lot of work to do between separating the ash and beginning the daytime service, they would start earlier. Now, on the festivals, after performing the service of Tumat Addition, all the ash of the many offerings that were brought on the previous day of the festival had to be shoveled into a large pile in the center of the altar to make room for burning the next day's offerings. And by the time the rooster would crow on the festivals, the temple courtyard was already filled with Jews waiting to bring their offerings immediately after the morning Tamid, so they could not wait until then to separate the ash. And that is in Rabotai of Perek Aleph Mishnah Chet. We continue now with Perek Bet Mishnah Aleph. Having mentioned the service of Terumat Addition, separating some ash from the altar at the end of the previous chapter, the Mishnah relates how a Kohen was selected each day to perform that task. And the discussion here refers not to Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol performed the service of Terumat Addition, as we said in chapter 1 Mishnah, according to Rav and others, but to the other days of the year when ordinary Kohanim performed the service. At first, meaning before the accident that's described in the next Mishnah, after which the system of selection was changed, any Kohen, referring to any Kohen from the family of Kohanim who were on duty that day. We know the Kohanim were divided into 24 Mishmarot, literally watches, each of which served in the temple for 1 week at a time. Every Mishmar was further divided into families, each being on duty in the temple on 1 day of the week. The following Mishnah teach that lotteries were used to determine which Kohen of that day's family would perform which service. In the case of Terumat Addition, however, a lottery was not usually necessary because this service took place very early in the morning when most Kohanim were sleeping. So the Mishnah says at first, any Kohen who wanted to separate the ash from the altar separated it, meaning the first Kohen who came forward to claim the service won the right to perform it. Ubizman shen merubin, and when there were many Kohanim who wanted to perform this service, Ratzin ve'olin bakevesh, they ran up the ramp of the altar, which was 32 amot long. V'chol hakodem et chavero be'arba amot zacha, and whoever came before any of his fellow Kohanim into the final 4 amot of the ramp won the right to separate the ash. V'im hayu shneim shavin, if 2 of them were tied, hamimuneh omer lahem itzbiu, the appointed official said to all of them, put out your fingers. The Kohanim would stand in a circle, and each would put out a finger. The official announced a random number that was much higher than the number of Kohanim, such as 60 or 100, and then starting with 1 Kohen, he went several times around the circle counting the fingers. The Kohen with whom the count ended won the lottery. Now it is forbidden to count Jews, so their fingers were counted instead. All the Kohanim joined in the lottery. rather than just the two who tied the race, because the result would be a foregone conclusion were just two Kohanim to participate. If an odd number was chosen, the one with whom the count begins would obviously win, and if an even number is chosen, the other would obviously win. Therefore, they did it with all the Kohanim. Umayin Motzin, what number of fingers would the Kohanim put out? Achat or Shnaim, one if the Kohen was healthy, or two if he could not extend one finger without the finger next to it. In this case, the two fingers were counted as one. Then Motzin Agudal B'Mikdash. However, the thumb was not allowed to be put out for the lottery in the temple, because the Kohen could cheat by putting out a thumb and then another finger and spreading them so far apart that they would be counted as two. Now, when a Kohen sees that the number will fall on the Kohen after him, he could cheat by putting out his thumb in addition to his other finger so that the number will fall on him instead. This was a problem only when one of the two fingers is a thumb, because the thumb can extend far enough from the other finger to appear as though it belongs to another person. The rabbis therefore prohibited putting out a thumb even on its own. Any other finger, however, is permitted. And that is in Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.